Coming up, we catch up with a young Native fashion designer thriving in the bustle of New York City. Plus, an Indigenous woman is showing off her skills in the kitchen of a popular TV cooking competition. And an MMIP advocate shares the importance of support from all relatives. I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Chinangale, we're so glad you could join us. Aaliyah is away. In Montana, the Missoulian is reporting the lack of progress made in an MMIP case. Jermaine Charlo is an Indigenous woman who disappeared from Missoula, Montana 5 years ago. She was last seen at about 1 a.m. on June 16, 2018 in security camera footage near the Badlander, a downtown Missoula bar. She hasn't been heard from since, no arrests have been made, and her body's whereabouts remain unknown. Most searches for Charlo have been on the Flathead Indian Reservation. The lead detective on the case, Guy Baker, says he has a few theories but doesn't think she's in Missoula. And Baker says he's hopeful that after 5 years, someone will come forward with the information. Jermaine Charlo's aunt says she's not just another person who's gone missing. She was a big piece in our family. While natives account for 6.7% of Montana's population, they are on average 26% of the state's active missing persons cases. Moving to Alaska, federal officials are prosecuting non-native individuals for selling fake Alaska Native art. A man from the city of Ketchikan pled guilty earlier this month to selling Alaska Native souvenirs that were manufactured in the Philippines. This follows several other guilty pleas made this summer. As tourism rebounds from the COVID-19 pandemic, so has the market for art and cultural souvenirs in the state. However, under federal protections of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, it is illegal to market and sell artwork falsely labeled as created by an Indigenous person. For many Indigenous craftspeople, the law protects those who make a living off of their art and culture and encourages upcoming generations to pick up their crafts. The Department of Law has issued a letter to over 40 tourism businesses in the state with a warning to not remove any foreign country labels from their souvenirs. The maximum penalty for a conviction is a year in prison and a $100,000 fine. In Canada, dozens of Indigenous elders learned what to do if they go to the hospital and no one listens to them or abuses them. APTN's Chris Stewart was at the event that was part of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
I was at the hospital for 10 hours.
What? Why didn't you call?
My phone died.
It's called No More Kiyam, and it's aimed at residents at the Edmonton Aboriginal Senior Center. Dozens of elders were on hand to learn what to do if they go to the hospital and no one listens to them or abuses them. Lee Skidmore is a media producer for Bear Paw Media and Education, a part of Native Counseling Services. She says Indigenous seniors do not always get treated as well as they should.
And we wanted to share important information with seniors today. This information can help people speak up when they're in situations where they're uncomfortable or they're not being heard. And so it's good information to have anytime.
Medical professionals have busy jobs, but under Alberta's health charter, you can expect to be treated with respect and dignity.
Rocky Ward is the programming manager with the Native Counseling Services of Alberta. She spoke with attendees about the medical and financial abuse seniors are exposed to, and to speak up when they feel that they are wronged.
The video is certainly, it's very proactive. It tells you, that you do have a right. You do have a right as a human being. And as a senior, you do have a lot of rights. And speaking up for yourself, not being afraid to speak up for yourself, to be present in your own life, to get out of your own way. Sometimes we tend to let other people, dictate what we need.
Sir, you can't nap here.
I think I passed out. I need to see a doctor right away.
Are you sure you didn't just fall asleep?
All across Canada, there's Indigenous people who aren't getting the care they need. Sometimes that's fatal. And we want people to understand that they need to speak up. There's places to go to resolve conflicts and make complaints.
The resources are available at their 24 offices across Alberta or on their website. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
One Native man's work is at the heart of a new short film released by a legendary heavy metal band. A newly released 11-minute video for rock band Metallica includes Indigenous influences thanks to Taos Pueblo member Hud Oberle. The single called Amorata shows a Native man stranded in the desert with predators all around him. He begins hallucinating and wakes up repeatedly in new realities until he reaches a final destination. The project came together after Mozart and his wife had a chance encounter with Metallica member Robert Trujillo, who is also Taos Pueblo. Oberle said with him storyboarding and animating and his wife Healy March illustrating, they were able to tackle this huge project in just 3 weeks. If you'd like to watch the short film, it is available to stream for free on YouTube. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Hud Oberly grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, but has found a home in a faster-paced area, New York City. Always staying busy, he spent some time at the Sundance Film Institute's Indigenous program and serves on the board of the country's largest Native scholarship organization. ICT's Stewart Huntington caught up with him recently, just as the designer is preparing to launch a new fashion line.
It's everything I'm looking for. It's the fast pace, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of creatives and artists and art all around. Obviously my eyes are open to that, to looking for that, passing by that, but it's all, I feel like the opportunities here are endless, and so that's exactly what I'm looking for right now in this creative time and this kind of entrepreneurial time as well. So it provides for all of that.
Tell us about your blank canvas collection. That sounds really cool.
So the blank canvas collection is a slow release collection of items. So by that, I'm releasing it over the span of a year and a half. So starting out with the vest that I launched last fall, and then moving forward, starting this fall, I'll be releasing about 3 to 5 items per season. And so those items are made with organic canvas and then also a dyed black organic canvas. And so the concept behind that is for artists to apply their own art to that, whether it's embroidery, painting, beading, anything, for them to kind of use that as their canvas and make something new out of those original designs. I want it to be built upon with other artists, and the whole brand has a focus on artists and supporting artists through different things, but the blank canvas specifically is to provide like its own blank canvas.
You have a new line you're about to release.
Yeah, so there's a mini collection called the Here's to You Summer Art Camp, and so it's tied to the brand Here's to You's kind of mission to let everyone know that they're creative in some way. And so it's kind of like the entry point to things like the blank canvas collection, where maybe that's more geared towards practicing artists, professional artists, but the summer art camp is a little seed so that people can feel that they're creative as well. So when I launch the collection, I'm going to be also doing some in-person events so that there's some interactive art opportunities. And the back of the shirt says your inner child is an artist. So hopefully the people that get it, wherever they may be, but specifically in New York City, walking around, it makes people think about themselves being an artist and kind of having that childlike joy brought back to them through creativity.
Your work is for sale at Relative Arts, the new Indigenous creative space in downtown New York. The co-founders there talk about promoting Indigenous futurism. What does that mean to you?
To me, Indigenous futurism is the collective effort by anyone of all ages to imagine what indigeneity looks like in the future, whether that's 10 years or 500 years, figuring out what that means for holding on to our sovereignty, holding on to individual sovereignty of allowing someone to become themselves so that they can be their unique self and be additive to the collective community, but having that responsibility and accountability to play their part and have their unique perspective be added to the conversations.
HUD, tell us about your work with scholarships.
Yeah, so I'm on the board for Natives Forward Scholars Fund, formerly American Indian Graduate Center. I've been on their board since 2019. We're the largest direct scholarship provider of Native students in the United States.
Supporting students sounds like Indigenous futurism.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of the public servant work that I've done for Indian country. It's like finding the emerging talent, whether that's students or artists, and meeting them where they're at to help support them and their vision, so that we can support them where it might not fall into the mainstream societal institutions and their structures, but finding them where they're at and supporting them wherever their imagination may go. And I guess you could relate that to imagining Indigenous futurism.
HUD, you grew up immersed in your native cultures. Tell us about how that has helped you navigate your early career.
Yeah, well, I grew up dancing in our Osage Elanchka since I was 8 years old. And so now that's been 20 years now, just putting that math together in my head. But 20 years being a part of our Elanchka, which is our ceremonial gatherings that happen in June. And so, I mean, just being very Osage specific on those things, there's a lot of structure and certain ways of doing things and doing things the right way. And so there's things that I think are carried through me and through the work that I do that relate to those things. But I think just generally being raised around my culture, whether it's Osage, Comanche, or Caddo, is that those things have molded my mind to how I make decisions. And so the ideas that I have through Here's to You or with Native Forward or the other things I do, they may not be directly like, this is an Osage idea or this is a traditional Caddo or Comanche idea, but those ways of thinking that I grew up around informed the decisions I have and translate to not just Indigenous related decisions, but everything I do. And I think that's where there's freedom now, which is great in the art world, is that people can come from their Indigenous backgrounds, but not everything has to be feathers, headdresses, roaches, and it can be that, but it doesn't have to be.
HUD, thanks for joining us today.
Of course, it's a great time.
A former policy analyst is using her Indigenous cooking skills on the second season of PBS cooking competition, The Great American Recipe. The show, Gibbons says, is an opportunity to share food ways her people have been using for thousands of years. ICT senior producer Vincent Moniz has more.
When Coeur d'Alene citizen Maria Gibbons wasn't with her father in court, she was fishing and berry picking with her mother in the Idaho mountains. The former policy analyst is using her Indigenous food knowledge on the PBS cooking competition, The Great American Recipe. Maria recently spoke with Sandra Hale-Schulman about how she blended her love of cooking with her education.
So I grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I've been cooking since I was probably 10 years old. My mom taught me how to make enchiladas and just cook for the family. We're a busy family of 4, and learning how to cook was just part of the gig of growing up in our family. And so I've just fallen in love with, cooking. I love cooking for my friends, my family, and just kind of, there's so much to learn and so much to create when you're cooking that, Yeah, that's kind of where it started. I graduated from the University of Washington with a bachelor's in American Indian Studies and Political Science, and then went to Washington, D.C. and was working on salmon legislation in the Senate, and then the Native Farm Bill Coalition when I worked at NCAI. And then it was there where I kind of realized, oh, all these things that I really care about are connected through food. Environment, economic development, just cooking and culture and hanging out with people could all be connected through food. And so that's when I decided to go get my master's degree in environment and sustainable food systems from the University of Colorado in Boulder. And that just kind of opened up this whole big world of food and food systems. And I just have fallen in love with it.
Gibbons tells us how much salmon is tied to her people's foodways and how inventive they have to be to feed everyone.
I'm Coeur d'Alene, and so salmon is part of our culture. We're salmon people. And so salmon is what we would always have. If I was feeling a little bit sick, my mom would, here, have some salmon. And so that's whenever I'm feeling, kind of in one way or another, salmon usually kind of can get me out of it. And, I cook it on the show. And it was interesting because the way that we cook it at Coeur d'Alene is very, I guess some people would call it plain, but it's just respecting the food as it is. Because I was always taught that the salmon, if you are eating the food, the animal chose you and chose you to have that its nutrients. And so you have to respect it by not putting, a ton of brown sugar on it or, something like that. And so, yeah, I love salmon. We usually cook it over an alderwood fire, basically taking the fillet and sticking a big stick down the middle and a few sticks on the side, and then just kind of leaning it up against a big fire to cook it. And or, sometimes people get inventive and, cook it over bed springs or something. That's what my family did at my parents' wedding, was cook it over bed springs.
Maria talks about one of the ingredients in her signature dish that has been harvested by her nation for thousands of years.
I grew up going huckleberry picking every summer with my family. And that's one of my favorite times of year, is just you totally unplug, you're totally out of service, and you're just present there with the huckleberries, and you can kind of get into a Zen state of just picking. And then, your hands turn all purple, and, you make jam for the wintertime. And so, might be the middle of December with 3 feet of snow on the ground, and you get to have some huckleberry jam with your oatmeal or toast. And that just brings you back to those hot August days when you're picking. You can do it any kind of way. I think on the show they had frozen huckleberries. And so I used the frozen huckleberries and mixed it in with some maple syrup and some brown butter, and kind of made almost a caramel out of it. And so that was a fun one. And I'm kind of experimenting more with that sauce, and put it on a cheesecake, or you can even serve it with meat. It tastes good with meat too.
For the Coeur d'Alene citizen, it was her social media account focused on what she was cooking that led her toward the competition.
I've had a food Instagram called Native Soul Food for, the last 5 or 6 years, where I just share some photos of the food that I'm cooking. And somewhere buried deep in my DMs, there was a message from a casting agent from LA, and they couldn't really tell me what the show was or anything, but they're like, "Are you interested in being on TV and cooking Native foods?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." And then after a bunch of rounds, finally found out what the show was. It was on PBS, and that I'd be heading to Virginia for a month to go cook. I think meeting the other folks on the show was the most exciting part. We all got super close, just in the bus on the way to set, or there's a whole lot of downtime when you're shooting a TV show. There's the judges have time where it's only them on camera and we can't be there, so we're hanging out in our little room, or we're waiting for the cameras to get set up, or anything like that. So we just really got to know each other. We were just hanging out for hours on end, and they're definitely some of my closest friends now, because we all have this common thing, food, that everyone is such a good cook, and everyone improved during the course of the show. And then everyone was so rooting for each other, and that was one of the best parts of it. And they were like, okay, but don't forget to salt blah blah blah, or to cut your things in this way, or we were all trying to help each other out.
And finally, Maria Gibbons says she took it as a personal responsibility to share how much of everyone's food comes from Indigenous people.
I think that, I know that the primary audience isn't going to be Native people or Indigenous people. It's going to be largely non-Indigenous people. And I kind of wanted to educate throughout the show and let them know that, so many of these foods that they love actually have Indigenous roots, like corn and salmon and squash and beans, and all of those types of foods have an Indigenous root here because of Indigenous people.
If you'd like to watch Maria Gibbons using Coeur d'Alene foodways, check your local PBS listings. In Bismarck, North Dakota, Vincent Moniz, ICT News.
An MMIP advocate was recently awarded a Bush Foundation Fellowship. Agnes Yellowbear wants families to be at the center of the movement to prevent violence against Indigenous peoples. She sees how healing advocacy work can be when it prioritizes the voices and stories of families seeking justice for their loved ones. Joining us virtually now is Agnes Yellowbear. Hi, Agnes.
Hi, good afternoon.
You are a national advocate for initiatives focused on MMIP. Tell us about your advocacy work you've done so far.
Well, so far, like I said, I've been a longtime dedicated advocate on a families first perspective within this movement. And my focus moving forward will be to continue that advocacy journey until we see a major shift in this movement, where families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and people, their voices are front and center, in all aspects of advocacy, of awareness, even when it comes to, creating artwork and imagery that is to represent this movement for, awareness purposes. People typically don't really consider how their gatherings or their artwork or their pieces might misrepresent what a family feels and sees, or people tend to focus on the violence. And in doing that, you'll see imagery with like blood and things like that. And so those images can be harmful and triggering to families. And I think that we need to just have more conversations with family members to understand what the needs are, so that we can continue to meet those needs and advocate within this movement that is respectful and dignified.
In what ways do you hope to continue this work now that you have your Bush Foundation Fellowship?
Well, with the Bush Foundation Fellowship, it allows me an opportunity to be more present in spaces where conversations are happening with or without family members. It allows me to be present in conferences and trainings where these conversations are happening, and most importantly, to be able to surround myself with more family members to really just consult and learn directly from them, from as many family members as possible, to understand what the needs are that are not being met, where they feel that their voices could be amplified, and find ways to empower the family members that are speaking up, so that they are front and center, so that families are considered across every level of advocacy when it comes to task force hearings, like I said, artwork, organizations, community members that want to plan events, everything. I want family members to be the first people that are consulted when it comes to, any of that.
You are an MMIP relative yourself. How does that perspective influence the work that you do?
Well, my expertise and my knowledge comes directly from that experience as a family member. And, coming from a family of women who are all strong advocates within the movement in Canada, and, joining my family as my family testified during Canada's national inquiry into MMIW G2S+, it gave me a lot of insight. And one thing that I have been taught is that once you know something, you cannot unlearn it. You can't unknow, those things. And so with that comes a responsibility to ensure that the communities that I live in, the communities that I'm a part of now, in the United States, that I take that knowledge and expertise and understanding and try to implement it wherever I am, so that the lives and the experiences of MMIWP families can be improved.
Well, congratulations to you, Agnes Yellowbear, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.